Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the TNA report. This is gonna be kind of fun. I haven't done a solo series on my channel in a while. Typically, I usually have a co-host on both channels, so this is gonna be kind of something fun that I can do solo. Hopefully, I can keep the momentum of doing this, but we'll see what happens. Uh, I wanted to start doing this series for a while, but obviously my schedule would always just be too busy to really start it. But I figured, now is the perfect time to start it since, you know, TNA is on AMC, has a television deal now. It was going to be a big week for them, so I figured this is the first episode to kind of start doing this series weekly. Unfortunately, as I'll talk about, they couldn't maintain the momentum they were having from last year, so the first episode really didn't go very well. But I'll get into that as I talk about this more. But yeah, I'll try to do this episode. I'll try to do this series at least every week. Try to maintain it. It'll be interesting to see how it works. If I end up bowing out after a couple weeks, but we'll see what happens. But kind of before I talk about TNA and how this will work too is I'll typically talk about TNA shows throughout the week. So it will typically be Impact itself, Explosion, and then obviously if they have like a network event or a pay-per-view or something like that. I have TNA Plus, so I have a way to watch it. I do want to transfer my TNA Plus to make it so that way it annual, so that way I'm not paying money every month and I don't have to just go buy the pay-per-views. But we'll see if that can make that happen. But yeah, let's just get right into it. Kind of before I start talking about, TNA's first episode on AMC, I kind of want to mention some news things that's kind of taken place these last couple of weeks. Obviously, we've had some departures and sign-ins and like re-sign-ins to TNA before they went to AMC. Killer Kelly is no longer with TNA. Not really sure what that means. Killer Kelly was someone that was there for a while. She was part of the MK Ultra tag team. And then, obviously she went away because she got pregnant and went to be a mom for a while. And then she's been back. She came back last June and had a pretty decent run. Nothing really all that memorable. I think she challenged for the Knockouts Championship a few times. Be interesting to see what she does now that she's left. I don't know if she wants to just go be a mom and take a break from wrestling, or I think she's married or dated Myron Reed. So, and as I'll talk about in a few minutes, he just got signed to AEW, so maybe she's going to go to AEW, but be interesting to see what happens. Kind of a loss on the knockout side of things. And then a huge loss for TNA is they lost the Rascals. This was, I think, a misstep by TNA that they ended up losing the Rascals. The Rascals obviously have been a pretty main feature for TNA since about 2018. Desmond Xavier had signed back in like 2017, maybe a little earlier than that. But yeah, the Rascals have been a main fixture in TNA. For years, they were a huge part of the X division and the tag division. They were really entertaining. Even if they weren't all together at the same time, we've at least had one member of the Rascals in TNA because they left originally in 2020, except, Desmond Xavier and Zachary Wentz went to WWE as MSK, and then Trey Miguel came back. And then when Zachary Wentz got fired from WWE, he ended up coming back to TNA like about 2023, and then it was Trey and Wentz as the tag team, and then obviously when WWE and TNA had the partnership, we got to see Desmond Xavier come back, or vice versa. We got to see the Rascals in WWE. And then Myron Reed got signed to TNA, and then he joined up with the Rascals. And then obviously when Desmond Xavier got fired from WWE, we had a little Rascals reunion before the end of the year last year. But obviously it was reported that the Rascals contracts were up. And I was thinking they were going to resign, but no, TNA never really reached out to them much. They ended up releasing well, not really releasing them, but they just let the contract expire, and then they went to AEW. I'm not really sure what's going to come of the Rascals in AEW. I personally don't know how successful they're going to be, mainly just because I feel like in TNA they really stood out because their style really was kind of something different for TNA. You know, they were kind of that flip, the guys that could do all the flippy stuff and everything like that. And I know there's a lot of guys in TNA that kind of do that, but I feel like the Rascals, you know, were kind of different enough where like not people work to their style. I feel like the segments were very interesting. I thought TNA was able to put together the segments pretty well with the Treehouse segments and everything like that. I just don't think we're gonna get that much in AEW. I feel like they're gonna get lost in the shuffle very quickly, and then that's going to be the end of the story. I think we're not really going to get any entertaining segments from them, but we'll see. You know, maybe Wesley, maybe they can all do something special in AEW. Unfortunately, Trey Miguel didn't last very long in AEW. He got released like right after they signed him. He's taking a break from professional wrestling to kind of work on his mental health. Then I heard there was rumors that he was kind of saying a lot of bad things about the LGBT community and things like that, and obviously that led to him getting fired. Obviously this happened before in AEW. I remember with Brian Kendrick. He like was supposed to have a match, I think, with Jon Moxley, and then a bunch of like posts that came out about him like way back in the day came back to bite him in the ass. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Trey Miguel. But yeah, the Rascals I think is losing the Rascals from TNA. I think is a huge loss. I feel like TNA, that's a misstep of TNA to not pick them back up again. But whatever. Obviously, Matt Cardona too. He worked his last show at Final Resolution, and then obviously he went back to WWE. I know he was never signed with TNA, obviously, but he had made enough appearances where, you got to kind of see him and everything like that. I think this is going to be kind of a big loss for TNA, but I kind of talked about, it was time for Matt Cardona to finally go back to WWE, so it is what it is there. I think that's it on the departure side of things. I know there's one more, but I'll kind of talk about it when we actually cover the show itself. We had some re-signings, though. We had the Hometown Man re-sign. That's pretty solid, I always like the Hometown Man. I don't think it's that big of a deal that he re-signed, but, good that TNA was able to keep him around. Mustafa Ali re-signed his contract. This is a huge deal for TNA. He's been a main fixture all year. He's probably the best heel they have in TNA at the moment, I think. So I think that's a huge deal that TNA was able to keep him. He's a big fixture of their shows and everything like that. Nick Nemeth, we ended up re-signing. They did a big thing where they released a video online where it showed him re-signing his contract. This is a huge deal. Nick Nemeth was kind of at the forefront when it came down to, TNA starting to get the big success that they were having. He was the TNA World Champion and everything like that. So I think this is a huge deal that Nick Nemeth is able to stick around and everything like that. It's kind of the main ones I can think of. I think TNA needs to pick up some more talent again because they ended up losing some big talent and everything like that. But we'll see if that happens. But yeah, let's just kind of get into the season premiere of TNA and AMC. I didn't really get to watch it live. I had worked earlier in the day and finally just crashed. So I ended up missing it. So I watched it on TNA Plus following that. Overall, unfortunately, it was a little disappointing, everyone had huge expectations about what was going to happen with this show, and unfortunately, TNA couldn't live up to them. We were obviously very excited because TNA hasn't really been on a big network like this since the Spike TV days. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this now, but let's just kind of start talking about it. It started off with AJ Styles coming out, kind of talking about saying that this is TNA now, how he built the place from the ground up. It was a good promo by AJ Styles, obviously good to have him there. Everyone chanted AJ Styles, and, as we'll talk about on WWE Aftershock, this week, this is probably going to be his last, probably time appearing on TNA, unless he shows up, in a different capacity and everything like that. So, kind of interesting that this is going to be the AJ Styles' last appearance and everything like that. But, yeah, cool to have AJ Styles there. I was happy about that. Then it cut to the intro. It did have a code open before this where it showed kind of like all the moments of TNA that led them up to this moment, which was also cool. We had the commentary team also of Matthew Renwalt and Tom Hannafin. We have a new intro for TNA. Pretty decent. I like the other one better. I feel like that's more of a TNA staple, but I can understand why they would change it. Then it kicked off with Elijah and the Hardy Boys versus Order 4 with Tasha Steelz ringside. Made a lot of sense to start the show with the Hardys, because the Hardys are a big reason why TNA's had the success that it's had. A good match right here. Good back and forth 6-man tag. Eventually, the Hardys win with the Twist of Fate into the Swanton on one of the good hands. I think it was probably John Skyler, but I don't exactly remember. And then afterwards, Special Agent Zero lays out the Hardys and Elijah. This causes the Righteous to come out and defend them. But then they attack the Hardys. They chain Jeff Hardy's by his earlobe to the ropes and beat up Matt Hardy as he watches. Good angle here. I thought it was pretty strong to build up the pay-per-view match and everything like that. I give the match itself 3 stars. It was pretty solid stuff. Then Frankie Kazarian got interviewed, and he talked about how he's going to retain his TNA World title. Then he has a face-off with AJ Styles and kind of talks about how, look, just because you're a legend doesn't mean I'm going to shake your hand and we're friends. You should be thanking me for letting you come into my house. And before AJ Styles, he doesn't really say anything. He kind of just walks off, and that was about it. It's sort of video package for the X Division. That was fine. And then Santino Marella comes out to cut a promo. Well, first it shows the stars being out. It showed some people from AMC shows and AMC productions out there. And then also it showed Candice Michelle out there. Kind of cool that she was there. And then Ryan Nemeth comes out and starts mouthing off to him. And then he tries to jump the barricade. He gets trotched up, and then they beat him up. It was not really a good segment. It really was unneeded. They did a segment earlier on the exclusives that set up a match between him and Mama Sade. So that's fine, I guess. Then we had the Santino Marella promo. He comes out and talks about how excited he is for TNA to be, on AMC and the progress that TNA's made since he's been there. But says, since he's had a lot of kind of things going on his mind, him and Anthem kind of agreed that he needs a little help running the show. So they brought in someone to kind of help oversee day-to-day operations for TNA. It ends up being Dario Ray. Really didn't care for this signing. I feel like I didn't really like this era of Dario Ray when she did it in WWE. And now she's back doing it again. She cuts a promo talking about how they're going to take TNA to the top and talk about how big TNA's got and she had to be a part of it. But then instantly turns heel saying that she can run the show better than Santino, and talks about how Santino books based on emotion and says that she's going to bring TNA back and make it fair in competition. So we're already doing a power struggle storyline. Not a fan of that. I feel like there was no reason to do this, but whatever. Then she says that she signed someone exclusively to TNA, her first signing, and it ends up being Elena Black. No one really care about this either. Elena Black hasn't been very interesting since her feud with Roxanne Perez back in NXT. I think the last good match she's had was that like street fight or whatever it was. I think it was like a Devil's Playground match on Halloween Havoc 2020. It's just been all downhill for Elena Black ever since. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't really care about that. Then Mike Santana's backstage, and AJ Styles says that he wants Mike Santana to kick Frankie Kazarian's ass, and he said that he's going to do that. Then we had Heather and M by Elegance with the personal concierge ringside versus the Inspiration for the Knockouts tag titles. They did this terrible segment with some influencer. I forgot to mention, too, they had BDE and another influencer come up with the Hardys. But they did this terrible segment where they revealed Mr. Elegance. The segment itself was really bad. Just go watch it for yourself. It's not a segment that you should be doing if you want to be the #2 wrestling company. The Elegance brand has been kind of a crappy gimmick for TNA for a while now, and this was like the worst of it. I thought this was pretty bad. And then we had the match. It was an overbooked mess. The Elegance brand kept interfering, and then eventually, the Elegance brand win the tag team titles after a bunch of interference from Mr. Elegance, and the Elegance brand are the new tag team champions. Obviously, they had to put the belts on them because the Inspiration are leaving TNA, another big loss for TNA. They're probably going to go to WWE. I could see that happening, with the strength of the tag division right now, and I feel like that would be very beneficial for them to go back to WWE. They could join AEW and want to be a part of that tag division, because I don't really think AEW, other than like Anna Jay and Ty Conti, I think, and like other people, have a lot of strong woman tag teams over there, so that could be a really credible tag team they could just put in right away. I just think they fit the WWE like mold better, but we'll see what happens. The match itself was kind of all over the place. I give it like 2 stars. It really wasn't the best. And then Stax and Ariana Grace are backstage, and this is where she reveals she was the one letting in the NXT outsiders, and says that they're gonna take everything from Santino. They had the TNA injury report that's completely kayfabe. Indy Hartwell's backstage to talk about how excited she is for TNA to be back on its feet, but says that she still has dreams to win the Knockouts Championship. And then the Elegance brand come up and kind of are very rude to her. And Indy Hartwell says that she's going to go get like a match made between her and one of the Elegance brand members. So that's kind of whatever there. Then we had a Knockouts video package kind of showing us the history of the Knockouts division. Santino comes out to kind of promo again. He announces that due to visa issues that Danny Luda is unable to come over and compete for the Knockouts Championship. So Layden Lee signed a open challenge contract. They bring out Layden Lee, and Zaruka come out to accept. This would have been a really nice surprise, but they kind of ruined it. Because they showed them like watching the Knockouts tag team title match like backstage, so they kind of ruined that surprise. And so Luca says that she would love the opportunity to challenge for the championship, but they need a warrior to challenge for it, and Zarya is going to be that warrior. So she signs the contract. They have a face-off. That was really it. Nothing really to this segment here, but it was cool to see Zaruka. It shows the history of the TNA World Championship. Cedric Alexander's backstage, and Santino Marella comes up, and due to visa issues for Leon Slater, he's unable to come over and defend his X Division title. A lot of people are trying to say that this really isn't visa issues on Leon Slater's part because he worked the WWE UK tour, but I think it actually was visa issues. I just think he's able to work the UK tour since WWE's in the UK at the moment, but whatever. So they have to have a replacement. So the replacement's going to be Joe Hendry. This was funny because when they say his name, he calls Cedric Alexander's phone, so that's pretty funny. The System cut a promo talking about how JDC is going to have his last match. And then says that, next week they'll announce the new member of the system and tells Eddie Edwards to pull the trigger because if he doesn't, he will. So, little decent stuff there to build up their match. Then we have Carlos Silva make another appearance. He introduces, the president of one of the shows, and then he brings out the former president, Trixie Carter. She got massively booed. I can kind of see why, because she was a real detriment to TNA during her presidency. And, her and Bully Wade comes out and they make up. Then we had the TNA World Title match. It was Frankie Kazarian defending against Mike Santana. Excellent main event here, I thought. And Bully Wade was on commentary for it. This match was absolutely excellent. I really enjoyed it. Really back and forth. Frankie Kazarian hit the Styles Clash. You get the Angels wins. Mike Santana hit a Canadian Destroyer. Frankie Kazarian kicked out of the... I forget what it's called, but it's like discus clothesline. Spin the block. He kicks out of spin the block. And then he hits two more to finally get the win, and Mike Santana claims the TNA World Title. Give it 4 stars. I thought it was a great event. It was probably the best thing on TNA's premiere. Unfortunately, I just don't understand why they did all of this, because they took the title off Mike Santana, after TNA was gone for a month after Bound for Glory. And this was the first show back, and then they did the NXT Invasion storyline. He won that, and then he just came here and won the belt again. It seems like they wanted to do a big title change, but I think they would have just been better off either having AJ Styles come in and be his opponent, since he ended up working the show. That would have been really cool. Or they should have just had Frankie Kazarian call a shot on this show and lose or win, whatever. It just felt like they wanted to have some interest in television to kind of get us here, but this was just kind of a really it made Frankie Kazarian's time with the title just a kind of a real waste of time. So I don't understand why they did any of that. But then that wasn't the end of the show, because then afterwards, after the show had gone off the air, they had Nick Nemeth come out to try to call a shot. But Mike Santana kind of sees it coming. They get into a brawl. So Santino Marella comes out and says that Frankie Kazarian is going to get his rematch at Genesis in a Texas death match. And then Dario Ray comes out and says that match is going to have a special guest referee, Nick Nemeth. I don't understand why they didn't just do this on the show. It made the show kind of really weird, because Nick Nemeth had said before this that he was going to call a shot. And then he never showed up, and then we found out he showed up after the show, so they should have just had this actually happen on the show. But yeah, TNA's first show on AMC wasn't very successful. It kind of fell flat on its face. They really needed to come in with something big, and they really didn't kind of do that. They had a few signings that I really wasn't personally interested in. Not a lot of wrestling on the show. I feel like TNA that was kind of their strong suit. They kind of needed to showcase that. Obviously, they lost the X Division title match because Leon Slater couldn't be there, and Myron Reed signed with AEW, so they lost a match on the show. But I'm gonna give TNA's first show a D. It really wasn't anything special. Even the stuff that was good, like the Mike Santana Frankie Kazarian match, how we got there wasn't very exciting. So I'm gonna give the TNA's first appearance a D. I hope it improves. But we'll see what happens. Then we had Explosion. Nothing really happens on Explosion. They just kind of showed the first show that happened in the UK, which I didn't realize was in 2012. That's such a long time. But yeah, not too much happened on Explosion. Then we have Genesis. We had the countdown show for Genesis. That was done by Ash Bayel against Dave LaGreca, Gia Miller, and Tommy Dreamer. Decent little panel they had going on there. I enjoy Dave LaGreca. I enjoy Gia Miller. Ash Bayel against was pretty decent. And then the commentary team for the whole show was Matthew Winburn and Tom Hannafin. Also, we had the first match on the show. It was a 4-way match for the international title made by Santino earlier in the day. It was KJ Orso versus Eric Young versus BDE versus Stacks, with Stack defending the title. It was kind of cool to see KJ Orso. I didn't realize he was the former Fuego del Sol in AEW and everything like that, so that was pretty cool. This match I thought was good, really back and forth stuff. They did a funny spot where Stacks attacked BDE from behind. He took his phone to take a video of it, and then he got hit with a dive on the outside. But then eventually he took advantage of Eric Young's power driver on KJ Orso and threw Eric Young out of the way and pinned KJ Orso. I'm not interested at all in Stacks as international champion. I don't really care much for Stacks. I don't really care much for the storyline they're doing with her, the Ariana Grace stuff. I thought the pairing with Santino and Ariana Grace was really working on its own, and they just kind of ruined that. But the match itself was 3 stars. I thought it had some good action. Then Santino's backstage, and Dario Wade comes up and tells him that he's just booking the shows based off emotion. He needs to start showing more favoritism or some more fairness to the roster, kind of whatever there. And then we had Tessa Blanchard and Mila Moore with Victoria Crawford and Robert Stone ringside versus Indy Hartwell and Vicious Vicky, who's not very vicious. This was set up earlier when the Diamond Collective were backstage kind of being really rude to Vicious Vicky, so Indy Hartwell stepped up and offered to team with her. Good match, it lasts a little long, I think. They get the heat for a long-ass time on Vicious Vicky. Then eventually Indy Hartwell gets the hot tag, and she inadvertently steps on M. by Elegant's shoe, because they had the Elegance brand out there to watch the match, minus Ash by Elegance. So they kind of get involved, which causes Tessa Blanchard hit the buzzsaw DDT for the win. Give it like 3 stars. I don't really care much for the Diamond Collective, and I don't care much for the Elegance brand, but I'll give it 3 stars. It was a good match. I just thought the heat lasted a little long. Then we had the show itself. We had the national anthem performed by someone that was from Texas. We had the cold open, kind of showing all the storylines and how we kind of got to this point. Then we had AJ Francis versus Rich Swann. I thought a pretty good match here. Rich Swann really takes AJ Francis, hits a lot of dives on him, but then eventually AJ Francis uses his power to dominate Rich Swann. AJ Francis hits a Styles Clash, which I thought was really cool. Rich Swann hits a Destroyer, but then eventually AJ Francis catches Rich Swann with a TFL, followed by the choke slam, the down payment for the win. AJ Francis and Rich Swann had new theme musics here, so AJ Francis was good. Rich Swann I have to listen to a few times, but overall I thought a pretty good match. I give it 3 3/4 stars. Then we had Mustafa Ali with Order 4 versus Elijah. Before that, Mike Santana got interviewed and talked about how happy he is to be the TNA World Champion again, and that he got to FaceTime his daughter and show her with the belt. And then we had Mustafa Ali versus Elijah. Good match here. Elijah dominates, and he's doing the best he can to fight off Order 4 in the beginning. They attack him before the match even starts, and then he's fighting him off every which way, but kind of allows Mustafa Ali to take control of the match. Eventually, Elijah makes a comeback. He hits the Highway's Farewell, or whatever it's called, and gets a near fall. And then he goes for it off the top rope, but Order 4 interfere. And this causes Elijah to attack them. Special Agent Zero gets involved, which causes him to get injected as well as the rest of Order 4. Tasha Steelz tried to interfere, and Elijah tries to hits the Highway's Farewell on her, but Mustafa Ali hits him across the back with a guitar and pins him for the victory. I thought he should have hit like the 450 or something to get the win, since I thought hitting him in the back with a guitar. It took a little while for him to get the cover, but it was fine enough for what it was. I thought a really good match, 3.5 stars. I I guarantee you this feud's going to continue. I imagine on TNA because Mustafa Ali's supposed to face Jeff Hardy. I imagine like Jeff Hardy, you know, I don't know how it's exactly going to go, but I imagine either Elijah will cost him the match or after Mustafa Ali wins, he'll make some type of appearance, but we'll see what happens. They did show the injury report, again, total kayfabe. Then we had A.D. Edwards versus JDC, JDC's final dance. Yeah, really cool. You know, JDC, it's kind of sad he's retiring. You know, he's done a lot in the business, I thought. He's always been pretty entertaining with his Fandango gimmick and his stuff with Breezango. So it's kind of sad to see him retire. And, yeah, really interesting that Eddie Edwards and JDC were a tag team. And this is like the first one-on-one match, and they've like basically grown up in the business together, so it's kind of interesting. But, this was just a really good match between brothers. They pulled out all the stops and really tried to win, but eventually Eddie Edwards has to put down his brother. He hits several Boston knee parties to get the win. And afterwards, he helps JDC to his feet. They shake hands. JDC kind of looks out and waves goodbye. Some talent come out from backstage and, you know, applaud him. I thought a good retirement here. It was really funny. They recreated the spot with, you know, where Gunther... the Gunther John Cena finish where it looked like he was going to tap, so that was funny. Give it 3 3/4 stars. I feel like it's technically a 3.5 star match, but with the emotion behind it and everything like that, it made it 3 3/4 stars. Then we had Ryan Nemeth versus Mala Sade. Kind of a waste of a pay-per-view match. I don't really think this needed to happen on the show. They should have held this off for TNA this week, especially because they're going to be in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Mala Sade is not exactly from Albuquerque, but she's from New Mexico. She would have gotten a better reaction like there versus here, but whatever. Eventually, Ryan Nemeth wins by rolling her up and putting his feet on the ropes, but I could have done without this. This was 2 stars. And then Staxion and Ariana Grace cut a terrible promo backstage. It was not good. And then Layden Lee defending the Knockouts Championship against Zarya. I will say I turned off the show here because I couldn't watch the show live because I was having phone issues. So I had to get a new phone. And then I just kind of didn't... I was too tired after Sunday, so I tried to get it done before a while, but I had to go out and shovel my driveway before then. So then when I came back in, it was like too late for me to watch the whole show all the way through. So I watched some of it, switched over to Raw, then switched back to TNA. Overall, I thought, you know, a very good match here. You know, very good powerhouse match, very hard hitting, but you know, the Elegance brand tried to interfere, and so Luca and Xia Brookside fight them off. They fight to the back, and then the match continues for a few more minutes, and Xia Li beats her with like a kick to the back of the head. I'm really happy about this. A big complaint that a lot of people make is that, you know, the TNA stars never beat the top stars of NXT. Well, Zarya gets pushed pretty heavily in NXT. She got a pretty clean win on Zarya. You know, the Elegance brand never really interfere in anything. They don't really physically attack them, so this is pretty much a clean win. So I give this 4 stars. I thought this was great. You know, I really enjoyed it. Then afterwards, she gets confronted by Elena Black, so that might be the next program, which kind of sucks, but whatever. Nick Nemeth is backstage to talk about how he's going to be a fair referee and said that, you know, he might, afterwards, no matter what happens, he's going to call a shot. Then we had the TNA World Tag Team title match, the Hardys versus the Righteous. Good stuff here. The Hardys attack the Righteous before the match starts, and a lot of the match is dominated by the Hardys, but eventually the Righteous get the heat. They do a really cool thing where they hit the Twist of Fate followed by the Swanton, but then Jeff pulls out Vincent before, you know, they can make the 3 count. And then eventually the Hardys win. Before they win, Dutch gets on the mic and says, like, that they just wanted to bring pain. So Matt hits the Twist of Fate, followed by the Swanton by Jeff Hardy. I imagine this isn't over. I feel like this feud's been pretty interesting. This is just like the first match in the story. I imagine this match is just gonna get this feud's gonna get even crazier. I imagine something's gonna happen on TNA where during the match between Jeff and Mustafa Ali, the Righteous will interfere and do something like really creepy that kind of causes Jeff to take his eye off the ball, and then Mustafa Ali will beat him. I give it 3.25 stars. I thought it was pretty good. I definitely think this isn't the end of this feud, so I feel like they kind of hold back a little bit on the match and everything like that. Then we had Moose versus Cedric Alexander versus Joe Hendry. Cool to see Joe Hendry back in TNA. I'm wondering what he was supposed to do on the show. Had Leon Slater been able to be there, like if he was just going to kind of promo or whatever, if he was going to do something else. Yeah, it starts off with a bunch of three-way stuff. Eventually, Moose charges at Joe Hendry. He counters it and hits a back suplex on the outside onto the steps, recreated in this spot from when he had his North American title match at the last NXT. So he's out of the match for a little bit. Carlos Silva and everyone's checking on him. So it's just down to Cedric Alexander versus Joe Hendry for a little bit. Then Moose comes back, and it turned into like a really good, very good three-way after this. And eventually, Joe Hendry hits the standing ovation on Cedric Alexander to get the win. They probably could have given this to Cedric Alexander or Moose. There's really no reason to have Joe Hendry come in and just win this match, since like he's not going to be there really long term, and this was just kind of a one-off. And they still could have just had Moose beat Cedric, and it wasn't going to hurt Joe Hendry all that much, but whatever. It didn't bother me too much, but I feel like, this is like one of the times where I feel like the TNA guys could have gotten the win. But I give it 3.75 stars. I thought it was very good. It was cool to see Joe Hendry back. So, then it shows an ad for TNA in Albuquerque. We have some stuff that's about to happen on TNA shows, like we're going to hear from Elena Black, Mustafa Ali versus Jeff Hardy, M. by Elegance versus Indy Hardwell, and then we're going to have the return of Feast or Fired. Don't know why that's coming back, but it is. We haven't had that, I think, since 2023, when TNA did the 1,000th episode. So we're having the return of Feast or Fired. So, yeah, I don't know why that gimmick's coming back, but whatever. Then Santina brings out the panel to give their predictions on the TNA World Title match. Dario Ray comes out and completely cuts it off. Don't know why we had this on the show. It didn't really make sense. Then we had the Texas Death match for the TNA World Championship with Nick Nemeth as the special guest referee. Mike Santana defending the belt against Frankie Kazarian. This match was, I thought, very good, very great, very violent match. It takes place all over the place. They fight in the crowd. They fight backstage. Mike Santana hits a crossbody off the top. Frankie Kazarian hits, a cutter when Mike Santana goes for a dive through a table on the outside. And then Mike Santana hits a really cool, splash off a ladder through a table. And Frankie Kazarian actually kicks out of that, which was very shocking. And then eventually the finish happens when Mike Santana hits spin the block with the barbed wire wrapped around his fist, and Frankie Kazarian's unable to get to his feet. He pins him, he's unable to get to his feet. And Mike Santana retains the TNA World title. Then afterwards, he gets laid out by the Danger Zone, and he calls out for a referee so he can call a shot. But Mike Santana recovers too quickly. He gets laid out with the spin the block, and then he just celebrates to end the show. Kind of disappointed. We didn't really get anything big to end the show, but whatever. I'm happy that they just kept the belt on Mike Santana. It would have been really annoying if he got cashed in on again. So I imagine this is going to be a thing for a while. I give the match 4.75 stars. I thought it was very excellent. I thought it was a really nice, violent match, and made TNA look good. And I liked TNA Genesis. I thought overall it was a really strong show. Not the best TNA show that they've done. I still think, Genesis last year was probably better, and we've seen some better shows since then. But, I thought an excellent show. I'm going to probably give it a solid B. I don't think it was a great show. I feel like some of the matches could have delivered a little bit more, but it's a solid show. I'm going to give it a B. And yeah, no Jericho on the show. You know, those reports that Chris Jericho may actually go to TNA, which I thought would have been something cool for him. Would have been something cool for TNA, but I think because of this, we haven't had Jericho in the Stranger Things Raw. We haven't had him here. I imagine they're going to save his return for the Royal Rumble. I think he's coming back at the Rumble, so that's going to be something pretty interesting there. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope to do more TNA reports. I'm going to try to do the episodes weekly. And then, like I said, they may be a little shorter than this. This went about 40 minutes since I had a pay-per-view and everything to talk about. But because it's only 2 shows, really, it may be a half hour every week. I don't know what the dates will be when I do them. I'll try to maybe either do them like Friday or Saturdays, and then try to get them out. I won't edit this either, since there's no real reason for me to. They're not long enough for me to edit. This way they can just get out there. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope TNA can have better weeks on AMC. I hope the next episode's even better, and they can learn from the mistakes of the first episode. Because, you know, TNA has what it takes to become the #2 wrestling company in the world. They were doing real well last year, and I hope they... It seems like a little bit lately, I think ever since after Bound for Glory, things have been kind of... I would say looking bad for TNA, but obviously they've been kind of making some mistakes when it comes to some of the bookings and, you know, some of the sign-ins and some of the departures that's happened. So hopefully we can have like a little bit of pick-me-up for TNA, and they can start to make some things happen. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. If you want to check out anything else on the channel, tomorrow I'll be doing Aftershock with Chris Dodd, so make sure you check that out. Chris Dodd and I are going to do a retrospective, kind of talking about John Cena's retirement tour and how we felt about how that went down. We're going to try to get a retro out. It's just been very busy. It's either going to be the Greatest Royal Rumble from 2018 or the Royal Rumble from 2016, where AJ Styles first made his debut. So keep an eye out for one of those videos. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. We would talk to, and then obviously for on the Talkinator, check out that channel. We're planning on finally getting some stuff done and finally breaking away from Yellow Jackets and Red versus Blue, since that took up a lot of our time last year. So make sure you check out all that stuff. And that's pretty much it, guys. And I will talk to you guys later.